Welcome to episode 105 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. It's official and Huddersfield Town are as safe as the money in Dan Porritt's pockets and will play championship football again next season. Is it all systems go for progress now, or is it just a matter of when rather than if we're back here again?
We won the Clarets Cup, and now we're staying up. We have.
Coming up this week, we look at the Coventry game, what it means to have a sustainable stadium, more fan power resurfaces, and the remains of the relegation shootout are to be decided this weekend. Joining me to do so this week and chat about all the above, I have a panel, which is the definition of a safe, if George Reynolds was about. It's Richard Kosi Kosmala, Dan Poz Porritt, and G.I. Brady Frost. How are we doing there, chaps?
All right, mate. How are you?
Good. We're doing better than a Derby or a Rotherham or a Wednesday fan because we know we're safe. We're proper smoking our cigars. We are staying up.
You're smoking something, mate, today. I'll tell you that. Right then, Town 1, Coventry 1. As Craig Blythe has pointed out a couple of times, Carlos throws in some rather square pegs in round holes. We had Poz, I'll come to you with this. It was a real sort of this is where you're going to tell me you haven't watched the game, aren't you? But it was a real
I did watch it, mate.
Fantastic. The system was a little bit peculiar. Aaron Rowe at right back, we've seen him do great things on the wing, and then he's gone back to right back where he's looked a little less comfortable. Harry Toffolo often making up a 3 centre back system, meaning Karoma had to drop down to wing back during those phases and then moving back. And Holmes and Bakuna having spells out wide. I'm not really sure. In theory, you can see a lot of these going, oh yeah, that's you can understand why, but it didn't really work, did it, on the day?
No, it was yet another sort of strange formation stroke tactical plan again from Carlos. I think it's becoming a bit of a habit now, isn't it, to sort of play anybody anywhere, really. It's almost like Lee Clark bingo machines made an appearance back in dressing room, and if your name gets pulled out, that's sort of position that you're playing at the moment. Bit strange doing so with so little time left to play. It's almost like still trying to feel out a position for people and a system, trying new things. Again, if we would have been safe 10 games ago, you might allow a little bit of that, seeing where players might fit in a view to next season. And if Toffolo can do a job as that third centre half, that might change who we look for in a champion in transfer window, for example. But we, 2 games to go, and still not 100% safe, albeit very, very unlikely to go down. It did seem a little bit strange. And again, it was just a bit of another lacklustre performance, really. I don't know what you guys thought, but there wasn't much to go at. There wasn't much to excite me. Just kind of used to what we've been seeing for the past, since Christmas onwards, really. Not right much more to say than that. We got a point in the end. A decent goal from Danny Ward, to be fair. I think the club put out a video in slow motion, and in slow motion, he's adjusted and struck one in, and hopefully that can be a sign of things to come. I won't hang my hat on it or put any money on it, but he's got a goal now. He'll probably score his famous hat-trick like he did at Watford on last game of the season, and everyone will get giddy again thinking, he might be the man to get us 25 goals next season. But I can't see it myself, but I'd rather him score than not. So, fair play to him.
It was a decent finish, Brady, wasn't it? The slow-mo was great, wasn't it, Poz? He peels off after, seeing the crowd, and then he reads it quite well, the chest, and hits it first time. It's quite a decent finish, and, it's been a disaster of a season for Danny Ward. And like you say, you wouldn't hang your hat on him being fit for 46 games next year either. But if you can get him into some sort of genuine fitness, Brady, then it doesn't look a terrible option, really, if that's the kind of thing he can pull out. And we have seen him pull it out before at Cardiff and Rotherham.
Yeah, no, and I think when we were talking about this, I think someone criticised us, but he is known to be a good finisher. I think I was really pleased for him to get that goal. To be honest, I think if he'd had a season where he hadn't scored, I think that would have been stick to beat him with. But yeah, no, he's a good finisher. You saw that in that finish, and I think the thing is, the big if is, can he stay fit, because he's proven that he's not been able to this season. Still a good option. But again, it's just whether he can get a run of games together. But to be fair to him, although he's been injury prone in the past, I think it's been particularly particularly bad here at Town. You know, even when he was at Cardiff, he'd get niggles and miss a couple of games, but not for the length of time he's had this season. So, yeah, good. I mean, the typical Town game, really, wasn't it? Like Poz has said, like, we played all right in parts, but then, you know, eventually we run out of ideas and the opposition scores. But instead of losing, we managed to claw it back. I think, yeah, the keeper for me could have done better. But like you say, you know, that's a typical striker's finish. You know, reacting well to the danger and, you know, not giving up and putting it in the back of the net. So yeah, no, pleased for him, and yeah, let's just hope we see more of it next season.
It was a bit of a flap from the Coventry goalkeeper for sure. Kosi, bringing you in as the goalkeeper expert this week. Ryan Schofield, he kind of comes under praise and fire at the same time, doesn't he? From the Town fan base, you know, like I say, I'm pretty sure everyone wishes him well, you know, and wants him to do well. But the goal Coventry scored was a bit of a peculiar one, really. If you look at it from behind the goal and the main TV gantry point of view, it just looks like a complete error, doesn't it? But from those that were in attendance at the ground, apparently it's taken a wicked deflection, which has taken it, but that doesn't get picked up on TV. It's a real strange goal. How did you see that goal? And more importantly, what songs are we singing now that we're safe as houses?
Similar to you, mate. I remember swapping messages as soon as it went in, like kind of, oh no, Ryan. But yeah, really was strange because I think Matt Glenner said it took a deflection. Obviously, he's part of the goalkeepers union, but like you said, it was strange because when you see the replays and stuff, it was just very odd. But again, I was so disappointed with us, and maybe just my expectations are just need to be lowered even further. But my kind of thought process coming in was last home game of the season, they were safe from last week. You know, nothing to play for. We're at home. Sheffield Wednesday and Forest has served up a stinker, so there were no real kind of pressure on us, I didn't think, coming in. So served some Uptown to get us excited, but there were nothing. Well, they were absolutely awful, and they ate the woodwork. Thought they were the better team, to be honest with you. We maybe deserved a draw, and I suppose credit for showing a bit of character coming back. But you know, another goalkeeping error and a finish from Ward, but so poor. I mean, Sonogo, it's like Ishmael Miller all over again, isn't it? Really, arms, elbows, running about, but no end product, and it just looked like a team who were on the beach to me for us. And really, we should, at that point, we weren't safe, you know. So to me, we should have been, you know, busting a gut. But again, is it just a tired end of a long season? It was awful, mate, and so slow on all the play. Our you know, the kind of stuff that we built our, you know, kind of fast pace in the first half of the season, just nowhere to be seen at the moment, and that as well. And even Kuruma kind of were a bit flat. So yeah, Howard, so disappointed. Nice surprise to get the equalisers, to be honest with you. I think like everyone else thought, here we go again. It's going to be you know, another home defeat, but the home record, you know, is poor. And yeah, it's just one. We've got to be happy, haven't we, that we've stayed up. And it's incredible that Derby, I mean, we'll come on to that later, all the bottom, you know, shenanigans, but they might stop up with 44. And to be honest, that about sums up the division. So yeah, sorry to be a bit downbeat, guys, but I expected more from this game, and left feeling, yeah, thank God it's over. And I'll be thinking the same on Saturday at about 2:20.
Well, I took a look at some attacking stats, and I'll read these out, and then you can all pile in. I know if I'm going to preempt Pozza and say, you know, I've looked at the XG stats, and Pozza's going to go, the only stat that matters is the final score, like he did last time. So I've preempted you there, mate. So I've doused that fire before it comes out. But in attacking stats wise, I thought it'd be quite interesting because XG is not perfect. It's not brilliant. I know there's a lot of people who just don't buy into it whatsoever. And that's fine. You know, stats are stats, aren't they? They can be used whatever way you want. And the way I'm going to use it is to kind of emphasize that my point really was using it to look at to see if Town have deserved more than what they've got. I think it's useful to look at XG in the terms of, you know, the quality of chances that you're creating as opposed to, you know, the final scoreline. So I had a look, and obviously we all know Town stats since January aren't great. And I'm using January because it's a good starting point when things tended to change. We all know we've won 3 out of 23. But the freedom, like I say, the freedom of creating chances is what worries me in particular. You know, against Coventry, we've had 3 shots on target. I can't really remember any of them apart from the goal, 1 off target. It's not a lot. So in those 23 games, we've only been expected to score above 1 goal on 7 occasions, which then gives you 16 games whereby we're not expected to, fully score one goal, which isn't great. And XG is usually lower than the final amount anyway. But it also shows that also in terms of that, we've been outscored 17 times, which shows that the opposition are creating better chances than us consistently as well. So the score lines and the form is not a fluke. It's not a case of we're not getting what we deserve. We are getting what we deserve. We are being beaten statistically, and we've been beaten on the pitch. And that's the worrying thing. And on the 6 occasions where we've outperformed the opposition, we've only actually won 2 of those as well, which were Nottingham Forest and 3, sorry. Nottingham Forest, Swansea, and let me bring up my spreadsheet I've got here. It's actually a notepad file. Forest.
QPR.
Well done, Kosi. Statsman Cos. So we've got those 3 games, and you look at the other ones, Borough, Bristol City. So it's 7, I said, didn't it? So Borough, Bristol City, and Millwall. We actually lost the game. Millwall obviously slanted because of the penalty. And the point I'm trying to drive home with this is that my worry is that Huddersfield Town are just not creating anything of note. Like I say, under 1 goal a game for 17 out of 23 is quite worrying for me. And even Josh Karoma's come back, and we've seen how good Josh Karoma is. That him whipping one into the far corner against Blackburn is not an expected one, if you like. It's not really improved yet, as you probably wouldn't expect it to, because he's not fully fit. But how worried are you guys about the lack of creativity and the kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? We're very very stiff going forward. How do you see it?
We are now, Matt. But again, I look at the goals against Millwall. I've got 46 goals. We've got more goals than them. It's ever since it's been this calendar year for me that's just gone Pete Tong. We don't seem to carry any threat, to be honest with you, mate. And number of games, in the first half of the season, I know Carlos is getting a lot of hammer and stuff like that as well, but I genuinely was really enthused with the first calendar year of the season. I thought we were good in some games. I know Wednesday are awful, but we ripped them apart with some good football and stuff. Middlesbrough, good football. Watford, good football. But that, like you said now, just creating anything and that as well. Since Josh Karoma's come back, to me, it looks our only threat. It doesn't help that we're playing without any wingers. Remember, a couple of seasons ago, we had about 5 wingers on the books. Now we ain't got any. You kind of no width, really. The early promise.
He's got Rolando Aarons, but he seems reluctant to start him. I don't know if that's an injury.
That was a strange one. I didn't understand why he didn't start with him on Saturday. But Pippa and Toffolo, obviously, they've kind of been injured and not fit. But I think teams have kind of got what they're about. And that they were our main threats. I think, to me, that you know better the stats than me, but it culminated in our lack of creativity is that when Pippa and Toffolo's they were never going to keep up what they were showing in them first 3 months, where they were incredible. They were like, proper wingers, false nines sometimes. They were just like buzzing in the box, shooting goals and stuff. But I don't see anyone else kind of stepping up to the plate there out wide and that as well. And we've tried, as Jonathan Ross, Dwayne Holmes there, Aaron Rhodes kind of had a go, but there's no one really that shows, and we definitely need a right wing, and I think maybe even a left one next season.
Yeah. do you want to go, Poz? Or?
Well, I was just going to say, obviously the goal scoring stats that Matt's given there is from sort of January onwards, and you think, it's obviously worrying, but for me, I think last week I've just pulled up what I said last week, and since we've been back in Championship, we only average 1.1 goal a game, and that's over 90, so not including Coventry. So over 90 games back in Championship, we only average 1.1 goal a game. So it's not just a 4-month issue that since Christmas we've struggled to score. We've struggled to score for 2 full seasons now. Obviously, if you include the 2 before that when we were in Premier League, it'd be even worse. But you can
even include the year we went up. We were second lowest scorers in the top half of the Championship.
Yeah. I mean, people bang on about the negative goal difference, which when you look at that season, we took a couple of hammerings.
We had the last month off though.
We didn't play particularly well in the last 3 or 4 games, which obviously skew-whiffed it. And you don't need to score many if you can keep them out at the other end, but we can't keep them out at the other end either. And again, just by going back over a longer period of time, you can make stats suit up, can't you? So, you know, by picking since Christmas, it probably sounds worse than what it is, but actually it's not, because we concede on average 1.5. So we've, on average, scoring 1.1 and letting in 1.5. It's not a great combination, is it?
Pause. I'll do a quiz question. Name a team who's conceded more goals in the Championship than Huddersfield Town this season.
Oh, I know.
There's only one, isn't there?
I guess at Wickham.
No one.
No,
Huddersfield Town have conceded the most with Wickham.
Oh.
And that's the problem for me. I think, I get what you're saying, Matt, but, you know, Derby, 33 goals. There's other teams. Koroma, if Koroma had been fit, I know if some buts, but I think we'd have been fine. I think the conversation needs to be, why are we just letting teams score for fun? It's Richie Keogh, absolute debacle. What a signing. Matt, you remember you were saying about them chances. I don't know if it counts, but Keogh.
That missed, that swipe. Yeah, I thought we'd gloss over that one.
That was our season summed up there, wasn't it, in that moment, I think. What are we doing?
Yeah, look, XG works both ways, doesn't it? It's about quality of chances created, and it's about quality of chances we give away as well. And we do give away some quite gilt-edged chances. And there's a stat going around about Ryan Schofield being the keeper who's saved the most shots inside the penalty box or something, isn't there? You know, which also shows that we are giving a lot away. And injuries have obviously played a part in this. And going back to the attacking side as well, the point about injuries is key passes per game. The top 3 key passes at Huddersfield Town are Carol Eiting, Josh Koroma, and Isaac Mbenza, and they've all been pretty much decimated this year. And part of me wonders how much the injuries mask what we're saying, Poz, or whether part of it is that this it's just not really working really at Huddersfield Town in terms of quality.
We've said it many times on here before, haven't we, about the quality? It's all right saying people have got injuries. Every squad gets injuries, but it's who replaces those, you know, first team players, and we've just simply not had the quality all year. If Eiting
and Koroma are fit, I know it's some buts. We score 60, 65 goals in my eyes, even with kind of some of the donkeys we've got up front, mate. For me, they're the issue.
We don't sign them, do we? We don't sign yes or no go. What you said.
They're our creativity, and the depth is not there. You're right, Poz, but Scott I doesn't even get a game, and he's only one. You know, honestly, it's Aaron's didn't even get a start on Saturday, and it's like his creativity. Carlos just seems to have gone totally in another direction with his with these kind.
You wonder as well at the back. Schindler's been out pretty much all season, and defensively we've been much worse without him. Even some people, you know, say that he's not as good as what he was, but for me, he's still our.
What did you, Matt? Because I think the hierarchy at Huddersfield Town, it's all about the injuries, and if everyone were fit, we'd be. Well, I still would argue that even with everyone fit, we'd be no better than a 13th, 14th position.
Oh, I don't think we're that good. I think in that team, there's a lot of players that know that they're not going to be here next year, and they're playing like that at the minute. That was another point I was going to make as well. You look at a few, and they're generally coasting, and the intensity has ramped. You know, the intensity has dropped way off from what it was at one point. Whether that's down to Carlos not being able to do the coaching that he wanted to do, you know, he's had to rein that back in because of the amount of injuries, which, you know, could be caused by the short turnaround, you know, from season to season, and without a good chance to get them, you know, fully fit and engaged. It's going to be interesting over the summer, you know, how Carlos goes about getting them fit, how they can try and, you can't injury proof anybody, but, you know, the key is going to be to keeping players ticking over. And he's really got to learn from pushing players in the red zone, because Carol Eiting had played a lot of games before he did his knee. And to be fair, that looked like it was coming a little bit, which is a shame. And I think the management of players and the welfare has got to improve from the coaching style, but fitness and essentially getting players out who don't want to be here is really key. But like I said the other week, there's no point sort of questioning whether Carlos is going to be here, because from all the signs it looks like he is. So, you know, it's a big summer for him, and he's got a longer summer this year than last to implement what he wants.
I think, do you know what, we spoke on here and we've mentioned it a few times, just what a transitional season. And I think we certainly expected that, and I think quite a lot of percentage of the fan base expected that, but I still think we expected to see some green shoots. You know, I could have quite happily finished 14th, 13th this year. That'd be absolutely fine for me, as long as I could see that the style of football we're kind of getting there. The ethos that the club put out when Carlos was first appointed, coming into it right at the very start, I weren't expecting great things, and as you know, I predicted that we would get relegated this season. And the razzmatazz that Carlos came in for, it got you a little bit rejuvenated. And as Kosi says, early season in patches we played really well. I did think back then, though, everything was obviously really well rehearsed. The goals that we scored from front to back, you can imagine them doing them on a training ground 20, 30, 40 feet.
Just while Poz pause there, I think we had a lot more buy-in as well. Sorry, Poz, you've gone a bit skew-if.
50 times, almost came natural. And with the other part, we were sort of had a little bit of adrenaline and a little bit of want, didn't we? We moaned on here that Carlos needed to change and be a little bit more pragmatic, and he was, and I think that's probably had an impact on why we've not been as adventurous going forward. So, you can't sit here and say he needs to learn.
I think he's thrown that back out though, Poz. I think that pragmatism stopped, to be honest. I think he seems to have gone back to what we were doing before. Certainly, in terms of the patterns from playing out from the back, seems to have come back 3 or 4 games ago. I think they're trying. I think the buy-in from the players is completely different now. I think at the start of the season there seemed to be a collective buy-in through that group.
I remember putting a tweet out early on, like saying, when Huddersfield are playing, I want to watch it, because, my kind of thoughts on the Carly football and what have you. So I remember putting that out, it must have been November, I want us to watch us again. I'm enjoying watching Huddersfield Town play again. Maybe I got carried away 1 or 2 of the wins, but I don't see that now, that is the thing. And like you said, maybe it's players that don't want to be there, but I don't enjoy watching us play. I was bored on Saturday watching and it's a bad sample in it, Coventry at home, last game of the season, flats. But it's for some time I've not enjoyed watching us play, and that's where I always stuck up for Carlos, and I can't.
We're going to say one game where the XG was off the scale, if you like, was Bristol City. Bristol City and Middlesbrough away. We were excellent then when we were good to watch. But I do genuinely think that it was the Birmingham at home game where he changed it, wasn't it, to go 3-5-2 and a bit more pragmatic at the time. But it seems to have gone back. But you look at the Blackburn game the other week as well, and Blackburn quite simply stood high on us, and then Adam Armstrong, etc., stood in the passing lanes, and we were really clueless with it. And I think a big part of it is people have adapted to us, and we're struggling to be flexible enough. And part of that as well is not having the players on the pitch every week to work on things. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment, and I think the summer is going to be key, really, in just those that don't buy into it, off you pop, and those that want to buy in, welcome aboard. And I think, given a longer summer and more time with the players, I'm just hopeful that we'll see some of that again, Kosi, and it'll be a bit more flexible as well, rather than these set patterns, which I think people start to read at some point.
I'm still with Carlos. It's interesting seeing some of our chat tonight. There's a few people hoping that it's his last game on Saturday, but you do worry, don't you, that is it going to be one of those jobs a bit like the season with Jan, where we want to.
There are shades of Jan with Carlos. I'll be honest, there are shades of it.
We want to start well the next season, but we get 8 games in, we've won and lost 4 and 3 draws or what have you, and the crowd are raging, which is a possibility. And it's such a, everyone's going to say at every club, it's a big summer, this, that, and the other. But we have the chance to create something now, haven't we? A new kind of hunger, a new philosophy, a new, people.
It's 15 players out of contract in the summer.
Yeah, but again, we'll come on it later, but it just worries me. All I'm hearing stuff from people who supposedly know is the wage bill needs to be lowered. The quality is garbage now. What are we going to be buying? We are lesser wage bill, but then counter that, we've got players who care, and you think they'll get them Benzes and Pritchards and what have you, who's stealing money. And so, honestly, for me, I'm just thinking, give me players who care and a bit of quality, but it's championship football.
Expensive,
though.
that.
Rotherham, it's really weird. I was saying last night, I watched that Rotherham game, and Rotherham, you'd be proud to be a Rotherham fan, even if they don't do it on the weekend, but they'll go down. They give everything. They've got very little quality, in my opinion, says the team who I'm supporting. They're full of it, I suppose. But it's really weird. We've stocked up, and there's not a lot of pride and pretty much anger with the fan base. They'll probably go down, but with their head held high and a manager who they'll think carry on for next season. It's really strange, mate. Really odd.
Brady, you look like you had a point. You were stewing on something, sat there. I could see you chewing your tongue.
Well, I've not. It's probably the camouflage, mate. You can't see me. No, I
Right,
think
John Cena.
No, I think Kosi's right. Like in terms of passion, like with Rotherham, you can see they want it more. I agree with you, Matt. I think like a lot of players are out of contract, so that's obviously a big sum. We've talked about it a lot. I think I've got a couple of concerns. I think with Carlos, we've talked about it before, Matt. I just don't know if we've talked about the wage bill and it coming down. I don't know if Carlos's style is going to be able to deliver that on a reduced wage, and that's what concerns me. I mean, I agree with what Kosi and Poz said earlier. When we at the start of the season, we were winning games, we were playing well in spells, but also we were winning. Even when we weren't playing well in some games, and that was really positive. But I think the contract, like you say, it's what 4 years, and we have to stick with him. But I think the only reason, if I'm being completely honest, the only reason he's in a job is because 3 wins in 23 is because he signed the long-term contract. But going a bit back to your creativity thing, the only thing that makes me potentially positive, or I'm trying to spin this as a positive, is this has been a crazy condensed season, and to address that creativity, we didn't see a lot of loans from Premier League teams in the league this season, and I think with things returning to normal, we might see that. And if that's the only way I can see us addressing that creativity problem, if we get a young like Smith Rowe in again on loan, because we're not going to pay the wages to get a good creative player, are we? We just can't afford it, like from the noises of the club. So I'm hoping the loans, because we've seen what Huddersfield can do with loans. I'm hoping that could be a
might need to be
positive.
left field, mate, might it? So we've seen the new Brexit rules, and there's a certain country which has got quite a decent points tally if you play just play one game.
No,
it's not Gibraltar. No, it's Brazil and Argentina. If you play, if you named in matchday squads over there, that's all you need. It's just to be named in a matchday squad. You can get 15 points relatively easy and get through the visa process. So
Matt, it goes back to, I remember we mentioned it on an earlier pod, but similar time on it, 2-3 games to go. I still, you Poz that put that, on our group with the West Brom game last season. I know it's going over old ground, but the bench, Smith Rowe, Mounier, Grant, look at it now. It's just like that. I think that's where the big debate is. I've seen quite a lot of it in the Twitter this week. Cowleys, they'd never have happened under that way. They progressed under them, but rightly, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but the Cowley had all these guys more quality than Carlos had, and Woody, and it's just, it's
got a bit of a fractured
I
squad.
think Carlos would have got more out. I think Carlos would have got more if he gave Carlos that squad. I think he probably would have got more out of it than what Cowleys did, simply because they played different style of football. On the flip side, I think if you gave Carlos a squad, I think Carlos probably would get more out of this, because it's a squad that's not littered with great talent. So it is a case of shape, unit. Everyone does their own little job when they do it well. Whereas Carlos is a little bit more flamboyant. So Smith Rowe under Carlos probably would flourish. Carlos has had to work with Alex Pritchard, for example, and that's the difference, isn't it? So you can't. It's comparing apples and oranges for me. Anyone can say under this manager we would have done better, under that manager we would have done better. But for me, the squads are sort of different, and the management styles are too different to even start to compare. For me, I know it's a moot point anyway, because it don't make any difference. But some of the debate actually on Twitter recently has actually been quite good, and it kind of sets the fan base as it is. And obviously you can't get into grounds, can you? So you don't talk to many people. You don't, booing and folk not saying why you're booing, and folk cheering and folk why you're cheering. So it's actually become quite a good gauge of how the fan base is, and it's quite surprising for me how polar opposite. You've got opinions. You've got some fans that it's doomsday, fold the club. We're going to do nothing, and then on the other end of the scale, you've got fans who are next season we're going to have a right good season and stick with it. It's unbelievable how fans can see it so differently.
Shall we read some comments out from YouTube as well? Really it feels like we should get some of these read out. So thanks for everyone joining online. There's 47 watching at the minute, so that's more than what Bradford City took away to Coventry in the Premier League. So well done, everybody who's turned out. Steve Blackburn says, glad we're safe, but not the manner of performance in full. Huge summer ahead. and in new personnel. Phil Marston says we were poor, but then again, we have been for a very long time. Pretty much echoes what you said there. Poswaldo. Jacob Hurst said, at least it's done. Let's laugh at Derby and Wednesday now, although I've got a feeling one of those might have the last laugh. And Shackle says, reasonable expectation to beat a newly promoted side who have struggled. You would think it was Coventry who needed the points. We looked like we were treating it like a preseason friendly. Yeah, I got that vibe as well. Joe McGregor, my mate in Texas, says, we don't have the individual skill level to disrupt defenses and create space in the final third to open up better goal scoring opportunities, which I think is actually a really good point, bringing to what you said as well, Brady, about it feels like Carlos ball, we'll call it, because that seems to be the in thing amongst us football hipsters. I think we need better players than the opposition for that to continuously work, and that's one thing that I think I put in our group a bit since as well. So he also says every coach gets found out. That's a natural part of soccer. Joe, you've ruined everything by calling it soccer. Get him off. Shall I kick him? Shall I kick him out of the chat here? You learn what teams want to... Yeah, it gets the Kosi treatment. But it's harder when the central mechanism of your team can't stay healthy. It makes it harder. So yeah, he's made up for that with a solid point as well. So thanks for everybody who's getting in touch. I'm trying to read through. So there's a few decent ones. Andy Dworski as well. Town have failed to keep the spine of their team fit. Keogh was I have no idea what that sign is, but I'm sure it's because he swore on there and YouTube censored him. Signing too many.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it's a YouTube swear filter, which is probably about right. Actually.
Brilliant. And he says, yeah, too many are looking for the exit as well. And Shackle says he's not really keen on Keith.
I think he means Keogh.
I know.
Keith, whoever Keith is, would
not only is the swear filter screwing people over, it's the.
I'll tell you what, we've
autocorrect as well.
We've done well to stop up, haven't we? Let's be honest.
Keith.
We've done so well to stay in the division. 3 wins in 23. We are so lucky that is. I know we say every other year it's the worst championship, this and that and the other, but someone's going to step with 44 probably on Saturday. We're so fortunate.
No, we are lucky. I mean, we did a hole. We were worried about doing a hole, and we did it. But we've not paid the price. Like it's lucky. Like the only reason I just feel the staying up is because there's 4 teams worse than them. It's
really weird though, because like I were out on Saturday at cricket, and you're safe. You must be pleased. You know, like other fans saying to me this, and I don't have that kind of. I should be really on what we've delivered and served up, and the signings we've made, etc. But you don't, because. Your future, you're always looking for a better day, aren't you, as a sports fan? And we've got the chance to have that better day, but I think we're a bit better than that though now, cause I think when we first got promoted, it was okay to be happy to be safe for a couple of years, but I think at some point you've got to look to push on, and really we're in the same place we were sort of 8-9 years ago, having had some great memories, don't get me wrong, but I think that's the disappointment really. But the only thing
it comes down to expectations, doesn't it? And I won't say at the time we expected more, because like we all said we were going to struggle. We all knew we'd struggle, but I think I tweeted out after the match, I've never been so underwhelmed about staying up. Look when we stayed up against Barnsley, and you're on pitch and you're going mental and you're celebrating it. And this season it was almost like an embarrassment to celebrate staying up, because it's not an achievement really, is it, considering where we've been? And I know you can't always go, just because you're in Premier League, you shouldn't be.
It's not that though. We had a window of what, like Kosi says earlier, we had a really good window, Poz, of what football looked like under Carlos between sort of October, November and December, didn't we? And it looked good.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the disappointment as well, is that it's just gone flat. And it's gone flat because of what people have been saying since the summer, in terms of, lack of squad depth and lack of additions. And, I think part of it is just what it is. I'm just keen to move the conversation on a little bit. Any last words?
Just play devil's advocate. You tipped us to go down. We're staying up.
Yeah, shit.
Why are you flat? Why are you flat?
Because they have tipped us to go down.
You overachieved from your prediction.
We have.
It's angry.
It still doesn't mean that I feel elated that we'd stayed up, if you know what I mean. I predicted we'd go down, but I predicted that with head, not heart, if that makes sense. So to stay up, brilliant, we stayed up, but I'm not going to start a parade because we've stayed up, because we should be better. Just because I thought we'd go down, doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you weren't happy with your prediction, were you?
I keep twirling around in my head, are we any better off than we were 12 months ago? I think we are only because we've got players out of contract. That is the only thing. I'm trying to think of. Plus, last year we had O'Brien. We could say, yeah, brilliant. Pippa faded away, but I suppose overall a positive.
He's never played that amount of games, though, has he, Pippa?
No.
He's been injured for half.
And he's playing injured.
But after that, it's such a tough one to measure when we're in a better off as a club.
I think we're in a better starting position, aren't we? If you think about it, we've cleared decks. Well, we will have at the end of next summer. So it's almost like refurbing it with, refurbing your house at some point. It is just back to bare brick. And I think after contracts are ended, we're back to bare brick, and we can start to put it back right rather than just bodging. Do you know what I mean? Like we've papered over cracks this season. We've brought in players like Kios and Ogo, and they've been makeshift, haven't they? They're a bit of scaffolding holding roof up, and now we've got a chance to actually build a proper wall. And now it just depends on the quality of the wall that we build. Will it
whether we're going to B&Q or some local.
That's it. Yeah, you're getting rogue traders, you're getting professionals, and that's a really bad analogy in it, all that. But do you know what I mean?
I liked it.
We've got a good starting point now for me, or we will have, like I say, in summer.
Had enough rogue.
So in that respect, I think we're in a better position to start the new way of Huddersfield Town, if that makes sense.
Kosi, can I throw something at you that's coming from John Earnshaw? Says, do you think we'd have been better with a crowd?
I think we would, and although a lot of people are saying that no, we wouldn't because there'd have been, hammered and stuff. I wish we had.
I think no crowd saved Ben Hamer. I think at the start, I'll throw that one in.
I think Phil were mentioned it a few times when he's been on, Phil Senior, but obviously he's played, but he thinks that things would have been a little bit kind of different. The players would have given a bit more with the crowd and that as well. I do, but then we were discussing it, I suppose, to kind of counter my own argument. We were discussing early on in the season, would players have had that confidence to play this bring out from the back football, passing it across, and this kind of patient build-up than when get it up, get it forward and all that.
Get it forward,
yeah. And I've mentioned a few times, would players have still had the balls to do it? And as results have dipped, I reckon that had gone out of the window as well. And, it's such a tough question to ask. My gut feel is, I think we would have been, but based on pretty little evidence, really.
Yeah.
Pause. Sorry, Brett. I was going to say, let me get this quickly in. You'd have liked this, Pause. My mate Tom had a football manager regen. I don't know if you've ever played it, but at the end of the season, it creates new players based on a random algorithm. He had a German centre back called Gerrit Schutt. I thought that was an amazing name for it. I thought that was an amazing name for a Yorkshire footballer, Gerrit Schutt. Anyway, carry on, Brady. Sorry.
No, well, how can you follow that? But yeah, no, I agree with Kosi. The only thing I'd say is like with a crowd, and we'll never know because it's all if and buts. But I feel like when you have a crowd there is that extra 5%, or you can certainly. I mean, we've seen in the Championship the refereeing, but I think crowds can influence the ref in certain decisions. I mean, we'll never know, but I would feel more confident going into next season. Fingers crossed, hopefully knowing at least some fans are going to be there, because I think that might give the lads a boost, or might not. We'll see. But I think I agree with Kosi. I think we would not like loads of places better, but probably like 16th at a push, maybe.
I agree with Joe that he says crowds can go both ways. They help at home, hurt away. I agree that crowds could have helped and hindered some players, and I think it probably leveled itself out at some point. Right, okay, I'm just keen to move this on because we've got a couple of talking points and we've been waffling for quite a while there. Okay, very quickly, I recently spoke to...
I've been waffling, Matt. We've been given...
I've been waffling like crazy going on over here. I've been winging this from start to finish.
Analysis, that one, my friend.
Right, so I've recently done a short interview with Aleister from the Htsa about sustainable stadiums. So this is something that you may have seen coming up. And I think this is just worth listening to. So this will go on for about 1 minute 50.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me back on the podcast. I enjoyed last week's episode, definitely a best episode. Coincidentally having me on talking about assets of community value. The Sustainable Stadium campaign, we launched it around 18 months ago with support of other community groups, MPs and other local politicians and councillors. Thinking behind it was similar actually to the asset of community value listing I was talking about last week. They're just trying to make the town stadium just be a more sustainable enterprise, really, and through the sort of people that use it, the fans, really. We've got 6 really achievable aims, namely phasing out use of single-use plastics, recycling bins on concourses, that sort of thing. Ultimately, fans can only do so much. It's down to the clubs and stadium operators to make it easier for those using it, the fans, to be more sustainable. Campaign's been well received so far. Supporters groups in Europe we've been working with, and it's led to creation of a sustainable stadium working group with ourselves, Giant Supporters Association, the clubs, the council, and what we are calling for has got to be done anyway. And the longer that it's left, the more it's going to cost everyone, especially in the long run. The survey results shows that most of the fans are behind the campaign and its aims. Next, we're trying to help get recycling bins on the concourse ready for the start of next season. We teamed up with an initiative called Pledge Ball. We're trying to sort of get more fans to actively be more sustainable. And we're trying to team up with several local businesses to offer fans deals on certain items and services that would help them be more sustainable. And hopefully we can announce some more details in the summer.
Okay, so thanks to Aleister from the Htsa. I realise that this isn't some of the sexiest stuff, that you get into on a football podcast, but at least Brady did look semi-interested during that, which is good. Andy's wearing green, which is also good. Yeah. In terms of a sustainable stadium, the thought process behind this is to reduce, things such as plastic on landfill, bringing drinkable water inside the stadium, so you don't have to buy a bottle of water. And research shows that sponsors will want to invest in clubs with environmental policies as well. And there are long-term cost savings on top of that as well. So I've been prepped slightly, so thanks for that. But Brady, we won't spend too long on this, but these things don't matter to a lot of fans, but they do matter really.
It's good practice. I mean, some people listening to this, it won't affect them, but I'm not going to get political, but there is a climate crisis. It might not affect this generation, might not affect my generation, but it'll certainly affect the generation after me. I think this is always good, small steps like this. I listened to a good podcast from The Guardian. I think I've tweeted about it before, but about sustainability in football. And they had the Forest Green Rovers owner on there, obviously vegan, promoting sustainability. It's well worth a listen. I'll tweet it out after this. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. I've been there on match days. You've seen how much plastic and rubbish there is, in the concourse where you're waiting for stuff. And, again, not to be the woke millennial or whatever on this, but, every single piece of plastic that's in the world is still made, and how long has plastic been made for? So I think it's a good start. It's not one of these that solves overnight, but if town are doing it, if other clubs are doing it, and like the Supporters Association are pushing for this, it's a good thing, and it'll hopefully make other clubs follow.
Yeah, and obviously we've been to the Premier League and we've seen how much plastic's there as well. So there's a lot that can be done to reduce the carbon footprint. Way for the
Tony
joke.
Bailey wants a vegan food option, so.
Mate, have I told you about the time I tried to go vegan? I went vegan for 2 weeks to try and prove a point that I could do it to somebody who said I couldn't. And we ended up playing Swansea away. Have I ever told that story? I probably have a million times.
Oh. Tell you what, though, we might be Forest Green away soon, so you'll be out. You'll get your
yeah. But anyway, when you go vegan, my mate drove from Leeds down to Swansea and back. And I we stopped several times all over. And literally, I could not eat anything in any petrol station or on a menu or anything anywhere. I was absolutely ravenous by the time I got home and had to settle for some soybeans or something. But it's difficult being a football fan and vegan. But I don't, and those Greggs sausage rolls, they're not that bad. But anyway, enough veganism. Right. So, Kosi, this is something you wanted to bring up. You wanted to bring up the protests at Manchester United. Do you want to kick us off with this? Kicking off might be the right word there.
It's really weird because, there was talk, obviously, of some protests going on at the John Smith Stadium, and some a few people in trees. What they're all. I don't know if it went a bit kind of the memo didn't get read out or what have you. But I think some people at the club were expecting a protest and that as well. So I suppose feelings are running high, but maybe not as high as what we saw on Sunday at Manchester and that as well. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel that the people on the TV don't get the fans anymore. And it's been quite interesting, really. I saw an interview with Andy Mate. I don't know if anyone knows him, but he does a lot of the fan stuff with Manchester United, does their kind of fans, done it for many years and that as well. And he was proper having a go at Jermaine Genius, who I think is another one who done kind of get the modern day fan. It was almost like, yeah, you've had your protest and yeah, it went too far and the message has been lost. But I honestly think these guys thought, right, the protest obviously stopped the Super League going ahead and that was going to be that. But, they've got their way. But I think they're so ill-informed, these people in the kind of the media. They don't get the fan base. They don't get kind of, I don't even call it working class because some of the prices you have to pay now and stuff. But like when Liverpool were charging like 77 quid for a ticket and stuff like that as well. I don't think they get it. And it surprised me again on Sunday. Don't know if any of you guys watched the broadcast with Sky. I kind of bumped into it and Keane. And again, Souness, another one who's lost.
I'm not convinced Gary Neville is this figurehead that he perhaps should be with regard. He's got he's essentially taken a club like Liverpool all the way to League Two as a vanity project, throwing money at. I'm not entirely convinced he's 100% the person that you want leading it, although he's done a far better job than a lot of people have so far. But the Manchester United thing's a strange one, really, because this didn't just start last week. It started despite what people on TV will tell you, it started back in like 2006 when the Glazers took over and they had the green and gold scarves. They even went and formed their own club, FC United of Manchester, out of that entire thing.
But the one thing I don't get with that, because I went to a game there last season before Man United were playing actually on the lunchtime kickoff, and I was in a boozer before it, and they were like cheering United and this, that, and the other night. It's really weird, isn't it? Because it's almost like they've been pushed out of the club or they've got their own views on the ownership, but they still want them to win it. It must be an awkward situation, that, don't you?
I think so. They're still Man United fans, aren't they, essentially?
Just don't want to give them the money. I think the thing that I like a bit of fan power. I think, the fans, I think someone likened owning a football club to owning a listed building, as in you own the building, but you can't just do what you want with it. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. And I know Dino used to say you're a custodian, you're not an owner. So you see the club for through a period of time. But the thing that lets it down in England for me is just a bit of sheer lack of organisation between fans. You look at what happened at United on Sunday, really good, big numbers, I'm not advocating breaking into stadiums and causing criminal damage and hurting people, but once they were in, it just became all a little bit embarrassing for me. You had people doing overhead kicks into net. You had kids running around taking selfies and filming.
Did it remind you of the time that Terry the Terrier got beheaded and had his head kicked into the net down at Alpine Stadium?
Yeah, you look at what happens in places like Germany. They've probably got the best fan culture that you could look to replicate, and they would organise it a lot better. I know their fan groups out there are probably a lot more built into the fan base, and you wouldn't have that. Just let's cause a load of chaos. And the net result at the end of it were really good. They got the Liverpool match called off, but what will actually happen from now? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no sort of real effort to continue stuff. You have a bit of a protest because it's the here and now, and then all of a sudden it all dies back down. But just coming back to the owners and stuff like that, I genuinely don't think that they're particularly that bothered that people at a club like United are turning their backs, because they make more money. Man United will make far more money over a season if they sold 70,000 individual tickets rather than 60,000 season tickets and 10,000, because everybody that went would be different. They'd be able to charge more. They'd all then go buy a shirt. I mean, if you're a season ticket holder, you'll buy one. You don't buy one every week, do you? Whereas a different person attending would. So it's all right, having all this, we've protested and that. But what will be the result of it? That's the thing, innit? It's what happens after the protest. And will it actually make a difference? Because I don't think it will.
I'll tell you what I wish we would have, though, in Huddersfield. But the passion in Ironhof, honestly, this sounds bad, this season, I would have loved a supporters group to gone in Canal Side and put some banners up. You see it all the time in Spain, or certainly more in Italy, to be fair. The ultras will steam in there and kick off, make the players aware, that a disgrace what they're doing to their football club. And you see some of the token efforts with some of our guys. I would have loved, this sounds awful, but I'd love some of our guys to be in a chance to see abusing some of our kind of guys on that as well. And you might.
Well, I'll be honest on that, because obviously, as you know, being involved in the Cowshed Loyal fan group, which is the main fan group down there, we discussed that at length, and we were very split within our own group as to whether that would be counterproductive or would it actually be productive. And we had debates and arguments, and I was one for going down and banging not causing any damage, not even making a scene, really, just getting the banners hung up and being there when players arrive and that sort of stuff. But I think the season that we've had and the constraints with everything that's going on, it just didn't feel like it would have meant as much as it would have done under normal circumstances, if that makes sense. There's a lot of mitigating circumstances at the moment, COVID, injuries, all that sort of stuff, and it didn't actually feel right, but it was something that was discussed. And obviously you've got to be careful in middle of a pandemic and a big group appearing, and would it have done more harm than good? And do you know what I mean? So it's sometimes not the case getting stuck in. And
the other thing that's good has come out of it, because Chelsea are going to have a fan representative on the board, and some people might mock or whatever, but that's going to be voted through the right way. So that has been some good come from the situation. That's just what annoys me with Town, is kind of, they'll say, but you've got the all together, Town and that as well. But that for me is it's
horses for courses, though, mate, isn't it? The Altogether Town thing was more so to really vent about who was it who used to do the food down at the stadium? I think that's
wasn't it? Yeah,
Sodexo, that's right. Yeah, and it's a different company now, but I think it has its uses, that for sure. But I think I'm not one for making. I agree with Poz. I think any sort of throwing the smoke bomb into the crowd into a crowded area was disgraceful, to be honest. And I'm not one for situations like that, but I do agree that there are suitable moments to let people know that you're unhappy if you are unhappy, and I think it does need to be led by more of what's seen as a faction or a fan faction like a Cowshed Loyal, rather than a Htsa aren't going to do that for a start. That's not what they're there for.
We've had incidents this year where Fraser Campbell stuck his fingers in his ears and Bakuna's shushing people.
Is that definitely what it is, though? Is that definitely what it is, or is that an in-joke? We don't know for a fact what that is, do we?
You are making, that's fair enough, but I just think our guys have had it too comfy. I'm not condoning that.
No. There's definitely things like that, and there's definitely players not putting it in, like we've said. But Bakuna shushing a crowd might just be ironic because there's nobody there or something. You don't really know. It's TikTok generation. They do some right crap on there, so you don't know what's going on, do you?
Yeah. Sorry, Matt. I was just going to say, with the United thing, going back to Poz's question, will it make a difference? I think if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective, from the Glazers, like Man U is the most marketed club in the world. I think if you've got fans who are, the Super League talked about legacy fans, the core. If you've got core fans protesting about it worsens your product because you get negativity around it. So I do think, again, I don't condone. There's always idiots in a protest, no matter what protest you look at. But I think they were right to protest. I think throwing flares, and obviously it's COVID times, so you need to be careful. And hitting policemen, that's not on at all. But I think the point of the protest was good, like you said, Matt. The Glazers, they did this. They've been doing this for 16 years. I'd like to see it more in town. I think, at Huddersfield with certain things, but again, it's like, what do you want to protest? What would we be protesting about at Huddersfield?
It needs an organisation, doesn't it? It needs leadership. Essentially, town need leadership. Town fans need leadership.
But I think that was, as much as you want to, that was historic. There's never been a thing in England where a game's been called off because of fan protest. So I think it is about momentum. It's about other
Town. Blackpool Town, mate.
Well, it's about momentum if you want to continue doing that. But what I would say is, and I'm sure Poz might agree with me, and Kosi's touched on it, I think fans in England, not to be that guy, but I don't think they realise how much power they do have. You see that, like we talked about the German culture. I mean, Schalke, when they got relegated, their fans were chasing after players. I'm not saying we do that, but when there's stuff like Bayern Munich, when they went with Qatar as a sponsor, there is banners at the stadium the next day. There is fans talking about that. And that's, obviously they've got the fan ownership, but that's why it is because it's sustained and organised. And I think in England, that's something we're not, we're not good at. And like, if this is going to make impact and stuff like this and with your club, then it does need to be organised. It needs to be thought through, and it needs to be, protests do work, like we've seen, haven't we? But it needs to be organised, and needs to be done the right way.
I agree with that.
You've got to be realistic as well, though, because like a lot of people I remember the old days of sack the board, and that sort of chants ringing around stadiums, and Phil needs to go and all that. But you can't just who's going to get rid of him? The man owns the club, so unless he decides that he doesn't want to own the club anymore and sells it, you can put pressure on him to make him want to do that.
Would that be our benefit, though? That's the other thing.
There's reports of death threats, which I'm not sure if I fully believe, and these feel that Phil's had to get minders to look after him. I don't know how true that is, but if it is right, then it's a bit much in it. There's better ways to go about getting what you want than doing that. And the best way to hit a football club is in the pocket. Let's be honest. That is the main way in which you can hit a football club. And somewhere like Town, it's a lot easier to do that than somewhere like at Man United, where if I don't go to Town, no one takes my seat. If I'm Man United fan and I don't go, there's 20 people willing to take my seat who'll probably pay double the price that I paid. So there's ways and means of getting to what you want, and sometimes I think sitting down with the people at the club who need to hear your opinions is better than launching a smoke bomb into a direct.
Yeah, I agree with that, Poz. One thing I will say though is that with
box, for example, there's a bit of anarchy gets the headlines, but is it constructive? Yeah.
Poz is having a bit of a nightmare there with his connection, isn't he?
No matter how they get stuff wrong. It's like, what about all that carry on early on in the season where they were going to charge you £15 for every other, then games that were free all of a sudden in COVID, then they were like going to be £15 for stuff like Burnley v West Brom, and then big outrage on Twitter, and then it got stopped. How can they get all this stuff badly wrong? I mean, that's TV companies, but what I'm trying to my point is that I don't think the TV companies or I don't think they get fans anymore. And
I'll tell you what, Kosi, there's Gary Neville's got a new I can't remember what it's called, but he's got a new channel on YouTube. It's called The Overlay or something like that. And he interviews Richard Scudamore, and I only watched 2 minutes of it. And 2 minutes before, I was infuriated by the attitude of Richard Scudamore towards football in general. And the guy doesn't view it as a sport. And I think that's the problem, in that they don't view this as a sport. They view this as a business, and big business. And that's the problem. Poz has got a great frozen screen there, hasn't he? It looks like he's back. But yeah, my point I was going to make, Poz, if you're back, was that with Town and Phil in particular, I from my belief and us interviewing, Phil seems to be tied up in so many NDAs. He can't actually tell people what's going on with a lot of stuff that they want to know. So this is whereby fan representation on the board and transparency comes in, with regards to the board. And for me, that would be a logical step for Huddersfield Town. Obviously, if you're tied up in NDAs, people can't say, from if the fans on the board who get to know can't say, but at least you have some form of representation that you trust on the board, and that everything's above board, you should say, if you want to use a pun. But that would be my way to go for a club like Huddersfield.
Yeah, I think just touching on that as well, Matt, it's like, what would you want? We were talking about, I think it's very clear on here. We're not particularly Phil's biggest fan, or we think Phil's made mistakes, but I was talking about this with some friends,
He's all right.
Two of Dean's potential, rumoured other options were the guy at Wigan who got them
Charlton.
Charlton, sorry, but I think the rumour of Wigan as well. But let's say that. But look at that, Wigan have gone from being a team better than us to being relegated because of a dodgy owner, because the EFL's owner test didn't spot that, and they're going to be in League Two pretty much. So, and while I'm not saying I'm happy with how things are going at the moment, it's like we don't know what the alternative is. We don't know if there is a better option. I'm sure most fans would love a billionaire to come in and buy Town and, sign all the best players, but I just don't think that's realistic, and you can look at that with the bigger clubs. It's like you're protesting about a billionaire to what, getting another billionaire. You don't know if they're going to be any better. They might even be worse. But maybe that's me being too negative.
No. Okay. Well, I think we'll probably bookend that bit there if nobody's got anything else to say. And just give a quick mention to the academy that won the Clarets Cup. I think what was positive really as a fan was that we actually got to see the team play for once. So, I think a lot of us have been asking for games to be put on YouTube where possible. And it was good to good to see that. So I think the club got that, right in being able to show the game, which is great. And Ben Midgley, nice penalty, shades of Tony Carr's Rob Edwards at the Millennium Stadium, powerful left foot shot into that corner, which was good. Kamara for me was the standout player of the team. The Clarets Cup itself is a cup. It sounds a bit like a youth version of what Arsenal created, with the Emirates. Was it the Emirates Cup or the Arsenal Cup that they used to have back in the day? It's a 10-team tournament, so it's not like winning the League Cup or anything, but it's a good step forward for the academy, and it was good to see a couple of the players in action. Did you guys tend to catch a bit of it? Poz, I think you saw a few bits and bats, didn't you?
Amazingly, yeah, I did watch it. Not watch it first team.
See, I knew you'd watched one.
I didn't watch it all, I'll be honest. I didn't watch it all, but I did watch highlights. Kamara stood out for me. I know he has been touted as being one of the best down there, but he did look really good. And like you say, it's just nice to, win something, innit? Better than losing, innit? Whether it's a tin pot trophy or not tin pot trophy, then why not celebrate? These lads are only young. If I was 16, 17 and playing and I won a trophy, I'd shout about it. So why not?
If you're in a competition, you want to win it, and they did. So
of course you do, yeah.
Fair play. So well done to the youth team and Captain Ben Midgley and the lads down there. So well done to them. Right, lads, let's finish with the bottom three shootout. So it's shades of 2001, if you like, Kosi, when Huddersfield Town were on the end of something quite dramatic, shall we say, when Birmingham came and Trevor Francis shithoused us by removing Peter Unlove and replacing him at Birmingham with Woodhouse, who scored 2 goals. So that turned out nice. And David Watkins' blatant handball not getting pulled up, and Dougie Friedman scoring that last minute. I'm still salty as hell about all this in 2001, as you can tell. But that was an unreal sort of sequence of events, really. And it looks like it could pan out a little bit this weekend. You've got Derby versus Sheffield Wednesday, which is a fantastic fixture and one that I think we'll all be secretly watching, if not properly watching. Middlesbrough versus Wickham. Wickham can still stay up, but we'll need something like a 15-goal swing or something ridiculous. So they're pretty much gone. But credit to them for actually taking it this far as well. I think they've done really well.
I've always been anti-Wickham. I've had a strange beam on it, but they've been with pride, man. And neither me, your mates, Bournemouth on last week, man, which I'm sure you'll be pleased.
Get in. And Cardiff versus Rotherham, and Cardiff, winning 4-0 recently, in the last game. Rotherham can't seem to buy a win, like Kosi, they miss a load of sitters a game, don't they? And
I watched the game. Matt Crooks, he looks a perfect town signing, ex-town, and he can't hit a barn door. He looks like someone that should be on our list. But you know what? It's incredible. I cannot believe Sheffield Wednesday, because they were absolutely awful against Forest. I couldn't believe it. I'm criticising Town for kind of Coventry, they nothing to play for, but they played like it was almost like a pre-season. Wednesday, had everything, and they were absolutely awful. Brilliant save from Westwood, also they've been down from the spot kick. But it's incredible that they I think pretty much. I don't see Rotherham beating Cardiff on last night's evidence. A big if, but they look done out of gas. I think they've been screwed with the COVID, to be honest with you, and that as well. I love Paul Warne, a great guy. And I think they'll stick with him just because he's a baldy and that as well. But I love him, how he kind of used the game and that as well. He did a brilliant interview on that quest.
Like Jacko for Rotherham, isn't he? That kind of character, yeah. Old hero.
The interview of that, Michelle Owen, and making me laugh because she was like, so you're looking forward to next week, Paul? So I'm glad someone finds it funny, this is a relegation battle. But I just thought they run the race last night. I thought they didn't look to have much in the tank. But Wednesday, Darren Moore's going to be back in it, I reckon, this weekend. Obviously, good to see that he's recovered from the COVID. But I think that'll give them a bit of a boost for probably Alisdair, maybe for Rhodes. Because again, another one, Rhodes, he played him as a sub on Saturday. Didn't get that at all, did the caretaker.
Play one up front, didn't they?
Yeah, good.
Rhodes got dropped, yeah.
But I suppose we having no fans in, I don't know how it's going to be with their nerves, because I still think Derby will be all right. I don't see Sheffield go to Derby and winning on Saturday, but they've got a chance to stay up, which really they should never have had a chance, really, Sheffield Wednesday. But they've been so bad. Can they just turn it on in one game? I still think Derby will do it, mate. They won't lose.
What do you reckon, Brady? Because I think Sheffield Wednesday have a chance there, because I've seen Derby have lost have they lost 4 of the last 5? They look really sort of down on their luck, and you look at the team as well, and you go, this isn't quite the team that I expected. You know, the stars of yesteryear. Do you remember when Craig Bryson used to be really good for Scythe, and Vidra? You know, they've had some great players over the last sort of few years. Chris Martin and what have you. You know, they've had some great sides. And then I looked through it the other day and I was like, what's going on here? Who are these? You know, they've got a lot of young players in there and quite a few players that aren't that impressive. Bielik's obviously injured, who's a big player.
Yeah, he's a great player for them. I mean, obviously Louis Sibley broke onto the scene last season for Derby, like quite a young, impressive, not really. I mean, to be honest, they've had the takeover business all year, haven't they? Like all the clubs down there have had some form of trouble, whether that's on the pitch or off the pitch. I kind of do fancy Wednesday, you know. I think I'm similar to you. Like you say, if Darren Moore's coming back, I think Derby look nervous, and you know, Rooney, like what we've seen, he's an inexperienced manager, and I don't know. I think whoever gets the first goal wins it. I think it'll be a really, like, for the neutral, you know, it's nice to not be involved in that game, you know, with a vested interest, but I fancy it. You know, Rhodes probably rumoured to be coming back here, but you know, he can score. I think Moore coming back, and they've got nothing to lose. And like you say,
Derby have scored 33 goals in 45 games, the lowest in the division. How bad is that, man?
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, it's gonna be a good game. I think I agree with you. I think Rotherham are too cooked. I think they're a bit unfortunate. I mean, how they didn't beat us was, like you said, poor finishing, and they've been unlucky. But I think it's too much, which is a shame, because I think, like you said, that passion, they probably.
I just looked at last night after Whistle Brady. That didn't look like a team to me. You, let's go again on Saturday. I know instant emotions and stuff, but it felt that were their chance last night, and they cocked it up, man.
To be honest, when they drew against us, I felt that was it, because they played really well in their other two games and lost, and then they couldn't get a win against us, and then I was like, oh, that's it, because you just like how, you know, luck plays a part of football, doesn't it? But yeah, I fancy Wednesday. I think it's going to be a good game. I'll be watching it. I probably won't be watching Town Reading, to be honest with you.
Oz, I would say who's your money on, but being the tightest man on the podcast, I'll probably say who's your opinion about rather than sticky cash.
Yeah, full on his money really parted, Matt, and I'm neither. I don't know. I think as Ben says, it'll be a really good game. It's funny, isn't it, how so many games at the end of the season turn out to be a decider, not just bottom of league, but sometimes top of league as well. And it's almost like the fixture gods know what's going to happen and make at least one game really exciting. Rotherham, I think, as everyone's just said, I think they're gone. I think they've just left it a little bit too late. And really, when you look back, they've probably only got themselves to blame, because recently against Town, they certainly should have beaten us. Other night, again, missed a couple of chances there. You know, had those 6 points onto their total, and all of a sudden they're up there and they're away. But part of me, I'm just trying to think which is the easiest away day for next season, really. So if I could pick, I'd probably pick, you know, Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham to stay up. But I think, obviously, no, that can't happen, can it? Only one of them can. I probably want Rotherham to stay up and Derby and Wednesday to go down. But I think Wednesday will beat Derby, and I think it'll be them that survive. A part of me still thinks something will happen and Town will end up getting relegated. So until it's all done and dusted, you know what Town are like. Hope could happen.
I'll triple check while we're talking, Poz.
Yeah, it will be a good match. So it is a shame they're the sort of games where you want a full house. Is it Hillsborough? Is it private? Well, even at Derby, you'd be full, wouldn't you? What is it, 30,000? And you know, little lad, we're watching some on YouTube over there. You know, highlights from playoffs and stuff. It were actually the Leeds v Derby match, that he somehow managed to flick onto. And the twists and turns in playoffs and relegation battles. It's what you live for as a fan, innit? And even as a neutral, watching playoff games is unbelievable. It's just not going to be the same this year, is it, without fans in? Mm. Or maybe they might sneak them in. I don't know, because of restrictions.
Last year they didn't have any in, did they? Last season, but
they can have a full house in Crucible. Then, don't get me going on that. You know, we can have some fans in for them playoffs. Bloody hell!
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, you know, football always seems to get the rough end of the stick, doesn't it, when it comes to supporters? But yeah, so
anyway, it didn't matter.
I threw this out to Twitter to see who people thought would stay up, and Rotherham came out with 40.1%. I don't know if this is wishful or who they want or who they think. I think there might be a mix. Maybe I wasn't very clear on the question. Sheffield Wednesday got 21%, Derby 36%, and poor old Wickham just 2%. Not much faith in poor old Wickham. And from the comments that I'm seeing on YouTube as well, it feels like everybody really wants Rotherham to stay up. They definitely get the sympathy vote, don't they, among football fans, because they've just been so unlucky. I still think Freddie Ladapo's rubbish as well, Kosi. I'm dying on that hill. He's not very good.
COVID outbreak twice, and I know it got debated. I think we even debated, didn't we? Is it the bubble or not right or what have you? But you've got to have some sympathy, haven't you, for them? And they were always the lowest wage bill in the league until probably we take it over next year. So yeah.
It's underdog though, isn't it? They're an underdog. Rotherham, size of the club compared to Derby and Sheffield Wednesday, everyone loves an underdog, don't they? So I think that's why people want Rotherham to.
Yeah, and the smaller club, aren't they, of the three? And I think people, like you say, people tend to gravitate to that. And unless it's Huddersfield Town getting to the Premier League, then obviously people
nobody cared about that.
Absolutely didn't want that at all.
Last ever I follow, apart from all you overseas people watching. Passion. I've been there. It's great.
I've been there.
Don't illegal streams. Honestly, I miss that guy. But it's all looking good, isn't it, on this cover? I don't want to jinx it, but I think...
Old enough to have had 2 jabs now, Kosi, aren't you, surely?
Oh, ask that first one. I'm not too the second one. It was horrendous. But to be fair, mate, having a COVID jab, I watched Huddersfield Town at the moment. There ain't much in it, is there?
Yeah, you still feel rotten afterwards, don't you? So, yeah, I'll go with you on that one. So I think that's all we've got. There's a couple of questions coming through about any truth in the rumour that Phil's paid Dean off. Nothing's been announced, so there's nothing really to talk about on that. None of us really know. I don't think any of us know anything on that. I certainly don't.
Rumoured on down at the Mac, obviously, 100% news source there down at the Mac.
Yeah, someone goes and spreads stuff on there, don't they, Poz? But we'll...
Me, I don't know, mate. There must be someone impersonating other people on there.
I had to look at down at the Mac earlier, and Kozi's mate Pete was trying to paint David Wagner as the villain of Huddersfield Town and blaming him for the last 3 or 4 years, and I turned it off after that. So I had a few jabs.
Let's not get back into whose fault it is, man. Otherwise, we'll be here till God knows when.
Oh yeah, I better not start that.
I think can't all Town fans just agree that it was a culmination of everybody that just messed it up?
Do you know the thing is though, it's like there doesn't have to be someone specific to blame.
Not
that was
one person, is it? It was just everybody basically.
Look, there's a football club that got promoted way too early and without the structure to back it up. And eventually, if you build your foundations on sand, then it starts to crumble, and that's what happens.
Saturday, it's all over. 2:20 on Saturday, and then week after there'll be people on here who's like moaning about Huddersfield and hating Huddersfield, and it'll be out of your lives for 3 months. It's a proper break. This and you'll hate it, and you'll want us back, and you'll want the lads back, and it ain't coming back. It's Edmund Hill. No, it ain't. Damon Hill. No, it ain't. We're going for enjoy this. It's done.
Did you just say Damon Hill?
I'm saying now, isn't it?
All right, okay. Right, great. I think that's a good place to end the podcast on David Hill. So,
off, shall we?
Fun fact: Dick Dastardly was based, I think, on Graham Hill, his father, because of the moustache. But there you go. Right, guys. So thanks for joining us online. Up to 50 people, which is great. Thanks for your support. And we'll be back. I think it's next Wednesday. Cos, is it the rota for the Reading game?
Wednesday, mate, reviewing the big Reading game. Reading Huddersfield. There's not been many important games with them two playing, has there?
I've got no idea how we've managed to stretch this podcast out to 1 hour 15 minutes, but I can't see the Reading one next week going that far. So thanks for sticking with us throughout this. Thanks everyone, and